Welcome to the September meeting of the City of West Covina Traffic Committee meeting. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order and start with introductions. I'm Brian Cervantes. I'll be presenting today.
My name is Ahmad Ansari. I'm the city engineering for the city of West Covina.
Jana Robbins with the Traffic Department at West Covina.
Allison Richter with the Traffic Department at West Covina.
Excellent. So the next item on the agenda is the traffic committee items taken to the previous traffic committee meeting. These items were traffic calming along Gemini Street between Giano Avenue and Shadow Oak Drive, the removal of red curb requests on 321 North Orange Avenue, and traffic calming along Eveningside Drive from Parkside Drive to Brentwood Drive. And all items were recommended, or that were recommended, were unanimously approved by the traffic committee, and these recommendations will be presented to City Council for final approval and installation. And the next item is the new traffic committee items, and the first item is the traffic review of Temple Avenue and Woodgate Drive. So there has been a resident request for city traffic engineering to consider installation of flashing stop signs at the intersection of Temple Avenue and Woodgate Drive. Although signage and striping was recently updated, the resident feels that this intersection needs further implementation with flashing stop signs since there is concern about vehicles at night colliding with the center medians on Temple Avenue. For the existing conditions at Temple Avenue, for a 5-year collision history between 2019 to 2023, there were 4 collisions at the intersection. Temple Avenue is a 35-mile-per-hour road, with Woodgate having a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. The intersection is an all-way stop-controlled intersection, and Temple is a major collector, as well as Woodgate is also a major collector. There are crosswalks on the east, west, and south legs of the intersection, and they're all standard white crosswalks. And for on-street parking, there's no parking allowed in the eastbound direction. There is parking allowed in the westbound direction north of the intersection, and for northbound, it's allowed on both sides. Oh, there we go. Perfect. And the following improvements have already been installed and are completed at this time. Remove and replace existing medium stop sign with new oversized 30-inch by 30-inch stop sign. Install red reflective strips on existing stop signposts at the intersection. Remove and replace existing 3-way plaque under each stop sign. Install new all-way plaques for all stop signs at the intersection. And refresh reflective yellow paint on both the existing center medians. And based on the engineering judgment, the City of West Covina traffic request guidelines found in the CAM UTCD and California Vehicle Code, it has been determined that this intersection is eligible to move forward to a level 3 review, which includes collecting traffic counts to see if Temple Avenue at Woodgate Drive qualifies for the installation of flashing stop signs. At this time, this location will also be forwarded to the police department for spot enforcement. And once the counts are back in, we'll bring it back to the traffic committee based on what the data shows.
Yes, and then as the pictures show, it's kind of small, but maybe they can zoom in. We did replace faded stop signs and have the red reflector, the oversized stop signs, and put the yellow paint around the middle medians. But since this one has concerns on the nighttime issue of cars hitting the yellow medians in the middle, we'll do some traffic counts at the intersection, and then we have to bring it back and see if it meets guidelines for all-way stop, flashing beacons at the location. So at this time, there's not really a judgment. It's more like we're going to be bringing it back after we get counts at this location. Any discussion? Ahmad, Allison? No discussion, and there's no residents on this one. So this one will go to get new counts. Counts will have to, it's a process that we have to go through. We use a count company that does the counts, so as soon as we'll have to hire them, get counts back, and then reassess the intersection at that time, and then we'll bring it back and let the people that applied know what the decision was. Okay?
So we'll move on to our second item, which is the traffic review of Valerie Court and Wednesday Drive. So the resident would like a review of traffic conditions at the intersection of Valerie Court and Renze Drive. The resident expressed concerns about line of sight issues at the intersection and how it becomes severely limited when vehicles are parked at the corner. The resident requests that an all-way stop control be installed to provide safety when merging onto Wednesday Drive from Valerie Court. We looked at 3 years of collisions for this and found that between 2020 and 2023, there were 0 collisions at the intersection. The speed limit along Wednesday is 25 miles per hour prima facie, and Valerie is also 25 miles per hour prima facie. The intersection is stop controlled along Valerie Court, but there is no stop for Wednesday Drive. There is currently no existing red curb at the intersection, and both roads are classified by Caltrans as local roads. There are no marked crosswalks at the intersection, and there is street parking allowed along both sides of the intersection. So the decision to install an all-way stop control is guided by criteria found in the CAM UTCD section 2B.07 and is based on a full engineering study. Section 2B.04, stop signs are used to assign right-of-way at intersections and are not used to control speed. To qualify for the placement of all-way stop, there is minimum volume traffic that needs to be met coming from each street, which is 300 vehicles from Wednesday Drive and 200 vehicles from Valerie Court for each of 8 hours on a given day, as well as 5 or more collisions correctable by a stop sign. In this case, it's unlikely that this location generates the volume needed to satisfy warrants for installation of all-way stop control. And then one of the main reasons we do not place all-way stop control unless warranted is that if a stop sign is not expected or motorists feel that is unjustified, then the likelihood of people not stopping increases, which puts motorists and pedestrians in opposing directions at risk, since they expect the vehicle to obey and stop. Another reason that all-way stop control could be considered is for those locations where a road user, after creeping forward from the stop line, cannot see conflicting traffic and is not able to negotiate the intersection unless conflicting cross traffic is also required to stop. If the site obstructions could not be removed, the intersection would be considered for multi-way stop control. In this instance, from field checks, site obstructions could be removed with the installation of red curb along the north side of Wednesday Drive. And based on engineering judgment, the City of West Covina traffic request guidelines found in the CAM UTCD and California Vehicle Code, it is concluded that the intersection of Valerie Court and Wednesday Drive does not meet the requirements for the installation of all-way stop control at this time. To consider the installation of all-way stop control, it would need to have demonstrated that there have been correctable collisions and objects in a corner sight triangle are such that cannot be removed, which prevents a clear line of sight of oncoming vehicles. In order to provide a clear line of sight at this intersection, red curb should be installed along the north side of Wednesday Drive on either side of Valerie Court. The recommendations is to install 30 feet of red curb along Wednesday Drive on the northeast corner of the intersection at Valerie Court. Install 20 feet of red curb along Wednesday Drive on the northwest corner of the intersection of Valerie Court. Refresh the stop bar and stop pavement legend for southbound vehicles turning onto Wednesday Drive from Valerie Court. Install cross traffic does not stop plaque beneath existing stop sign on Valerie Court. Recommend West Covina perform spot enforcement for speeding vehicles along Wednesday Drive. And recommend West Covina Police Department place their speed trailer along Wednesday Drive to remind vehicles of the speed limit.
All right, we do have a resident on this item.
Oh, yes.
You're up.
Thank you.
Would you like to state your name and then,
Whatever we can
Yeah,
say.
uh-huh.
Okay, my name is Diane, and this is my husband Marvin, and I actually
We're
wrote
from
the
Valerie
email.
Court.
Yes.
We wrote the email, I wrote the email on that. We're 30-year residents of Valerie Court, and I wrote that email to then candidate of the city council, I think Oli Contas, and he's now elected, when he was doing his campaigning. So it was the perfect time. The concern has always been there, you know. Of course, there has not been a major collision. There have been near misses and a lot of cussing, you know. We did, we learned now, a resident has to learn how to inch your way, because that's the only way that you can do it, you know, to make it safer. But we were requesting for a stop sign, but we leave it up to you guys, the traffic experts,
See,
to
sometimes
do whatever is necessary to prevent the collision that we are also trying to prevent. true, it's a resident area and we don't have that much traffic considering, Merced or Azusa or any one of those major thoroughfares. But see, this also is a major area line towards Valley Boulevard. So there's a lot of traffic going on.
Especially in the morning when kids
There's
or
our
people going to work.
There's a school, there are two schools, but not in the West Covina area, but rather in, down towards Llano. So, whatever the outcome, and we hope for a positive one, we just thank you for, considering my email, which I never had a hope of being heard anyway, because it's a tiny part of West Covina. West Covina, that part, we feel like we're orphans, because we're not in major West Covina. West Covina is this. We're so close to the border of
La Puente.
La Puente and Walnut, the rich neighbors, so we almost felt like, okay, what do we get from our city? Well, this time around, we wanted to make it formal and wrote this letter, this email, so thank you for considering it. I mean, seriously considering it.
I mean, and hopefully too, you said there were no accidents before they will even consider there have to be an accident. Hopefully it doesn't happen, that accident doesn't happen.
Right.
And I guess that's why we were so concerned, like, okay, let's prevent that accident, maybe the city can help us. Sometimes inching forward, all of a sudden you find yourself, you're already in the middle, and all of a sudden there's a car coming, and you were already in the middle while inching. And they'll yell at you, they'll honk at you,
And 25 is just a suggestion. 25 minutes, it's not, what they
Yeah,
follow,
I know.
unfortunately.
People
So
don't, yeah.
it's,
Well,
yeah.
at this time, we take in all the data that we have and we look at it, and then our recommendation is to improve your line of sight, that
That's
sight
true.
triangle.
Right.
So at this point, we have the red curve, so we suggest that, let's see how that works.
Right.
And then if, something happens, it's still not, you can bring it back, and we try to address everyone's
Right.
letters that they send in. Just West Covina is a big city, so we
Right.
get a lot of requests, but we try to keep them coming and look at everybody's requests, no matter what part of the city they're in. So at this time, this is what we're recommending right now, because it's likely not to meet the requirements to put
Right.
always stop. And then, as Brian had said, if we put in unwarranted, they call it, a stop sign, then although you guys may be stopping, if you live on Valerie, if the people on Wednesday don't think it should be there, they do the California stop or they roll through, and then that puts the side street guy at risk.
Right.
So that's one of the considerations that we look at. Of course, we don't like any collision to happen, so we're hoping that, to the best of our ability, we follow our guidelines, and this is what we'll do, and then we'll also forward it to PD. And they do have a traffic trailer that has your speed. So, we'll try to get them to place that out there just as a reminder. Now, schools are back in session, and all the parents are back, after having all summer off. So we do know that right at September, October is a bad time for parents rushing, and then you've got new drivers, teen drivers. So hopefully, we can get PD to help with some enforcement, spot, when their time permits, and that we can go from there. So at this point, it would go into let's have our discussion in, Ahmad or Allison, do we have any other discussion on this item, or we want to put it forward?
No, I think you mentioned everything, Jana, thank you so much, as far as, the analysis of the traffic engineering. And I just wanted to make a point, of thanking you to bring this concern to the city, and never think that any resident or any address is an orphan in the city of West Covina.
It's just
No,
a comment
no,
we all
it's-
felt
yeah,
at
I
that
mean,
time.
As far as, safety, particularly to the traffic engineering that we're here for,
Okay.
we are concerned about all residents, within the city
Thank
limits.
you.
That's always been our
Yeah.
priority, is the safety of the residents
Right.
turning. And
Right.
hopefully, no incident,
Right.
major or
Well, yes.
non-major
Minor.
would happen.
We don't want
you know.
any either. So, you know.
Right, and that's really a common goal.
Right.
And, to have, nothing can be perfect, out there, but I think the safety is predicated upon the three E's, engineering, education, enforcement, okay? And engineering, we have to be very careful at this level because, like Brian and Jana said, if you place a traffic control device that is unwarranted, and
Oh,
God
define
forbid-
unwarranted.
Yeah, God forbid something happens, then everybody's gonna find themselves in the court of law, and all
Right.
those
Yeah.
documents are gonna come up
Right.
and, hey, if this was not meeting the traffic engineering requirements,
okay.
why did you put it in?
Well,
So
what-
it has an adverse effect.
Right.
If you.
And
if
we
you-
do understand
warranted,
that.
or we call it warrants, unwarranted, we all go by in traffic engineering, is the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And it has standards that engineers all over California follow.
Adhere to.
So we're kind of the same, we don't put some weird signs up, and everyone, if you go into the other city, you'll know what a sign means, so there's standards that we follow. And in that, in section 2B.07, it has like thresholds that should be met. It's not.
Before you put that.
Yeah, it should be met. I mean, of course, there's other instances, like we said, the line of sight and stuff like that, that you can look at. But thresholds of volume
Okay.
to warrant or necessitate the need for always stop.
Okay. We get it. Thank you.
And thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We try, and then, this one will be forwarded to council. We usually get a group of ones that were approved here in Traffic Commission, and then we take them as a bunch to council, and they approve them, and then they need to find the funds to, construct all the things that we agreed upon. And as soon as they do that, then they hire a contractor, and that whole process starts. Like, right now, you may see that some things are being installed throughout the city. And these are ones that were, unfortunately, it's a process. It was like 6 months ago that they were all approved from council, but they're now being constructed on the streets.
And I'm assuming for economies of scale, they probably lump all the work,
Yeah, because
on one-
it's cheaper
yeah.
for the contractor to do all of them at once instead of come here now and then he goes away and then he comes again. So, the city tries to get
Group
more
them together,
bang for
yeah.
their buck, I guess, as they say.
Got it.
Okay.
All right.
At least we tried.
Yes,
Yes, we tried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for hearing us. So.
Thank you. So we're gonna, thank you.
Jana, did you want to do a vote on that one, or
I think,
unanimous?
yeah, it's unanimous.
Yes, yeah.
Unanimous. Okay.
Then I'll move on to the next item, which is the signage review along quote-unquote Lil Francisquito Avenue. So a resident requested to evaluate the existing conditions at the intersection of quote-unquote Lil Francisquito and South Siesta Avenue. Lil Francisquito is a frontage road parallel to Francisquito Avenue that ends in a cul-de-sac on each side of Siesta Avenue. The resident reported that drivers tend to be confused by the layout of the area and mistakenly turn into the cul-de-sac instead of the through street, which is the main Francisquito Avenue. Resident requests that the installation of no through street or dead end signs be installed. The frontage road to the northwest ends at a cul-de-sac, but vehicles can turn onto Maryland Avenue to travel to Allwood Street. So it's not essentially a dead end. The frontage road to the southeast of Siesta Avenue has no outlet, and vehicles must make a U-turn to exit Lil Francisquito Avenue if they turn into the east leg. So only the east leg of the cul-de-sac is eligible for the dead end sign. So based on engineering judgment, the City of West Covina traffic request guidelines found in the CAM UTCD and CVC, the intersection of Little Francisquito and Siesta Avenue qualifies for the following. Install dead end sign W14-1 with arrow pointing W14-1A facing southeast to the direction the street ends per CAM UTCD section 2C.26. That's the only recommendation on this one.
So this is basically just a dead end sign with the arrow facing the dead end. We do not have any residents on this item. Any conversation?
I think it's
So,
good.
shall we vote?
I'm good. Yep.
Move it, so it'd be unanimous, move it to, council
Yep.
to get installed. And this one, Brian, we could check with maintenance if they have the dead end sign. So maybe we can bypass the process and not have to wait,
Okay.
since it's only a sign
I'll reach out to
and
them.
a new pole.
Perfect. Then our fourth item is Merced Avenue between Lark Ellen Avenue and Azusa Avenue. The resident requested the evaluation of existing conditions along the segment of Merced Avenue between Lark Ellen Avenue and Azusa Avenue. The resident reported that vehicles tend to speed through this segment, causing concerns due to the proximity to a school zone with pedestrian activity. The resident requested for an all-way stop to be implemented midway between Lark Ellen Avenue and Azusa Avenue, as shown to slow cars down near the school. And then for the existing conditions, we reviewed 3 years of collision history and found that there was 3 collisions between 2020 and 2023. The posted speed limit along this segment is 40 miles per hour with an average daily traffic of 7,985 vehicles. The 85th percentile on the speed survey was 44 miles per hour. The street classification from Caltrans is that the road is a minor arterial road. On-street parking conditions for the eastbound direction is allowed. For westbound, parking is allowed except for school parking restrictions. And similar to the previous item, the decision, or 2 items previous, the decision to install all-way stop control is guided by criteria found in the CAM UTCD, section 2B.07, and is based on a full engineering study. Section 2B.04, stop signs are used to assign right-of-way at intersections and are not used to control speed. To qualify for the placement of all-way stop, there is a minimum volume of traffic that needs to be met coming from each street for 8 hours on a given day, as well as 5 or more collisions correctable by a stop sign. And based on the new traffic guidelines, since this location is across from a school, it meets the requirements for collecting additional count data at the intersection of Merced Avenue and Butterfield Avenue. The data collection will include new speed and ADT on each approach, as well as an intersection count at the intersection during peak conditions while school is in session. This location will be brought back to the Traffic Commission for consideration after all data has been collected and has been assessed. This location is also part of the West Covina ATP Cycle 5 grant that was recently awarded to the city by Metro. Improvements along the school may also be a part of the grant.
So basically this one, because it's the near school and it has an uncontrolled school crossing, we will go ahead and do additional counts to see if it met all-way stop control warrants. At that time, once the data is collected, then we will bring it back to Traffic Commission to go over the results.
Then we'll move on to our 5th and last item, which is Azusa Avenue around Thelborn Street. A resident requested for the evaluation of existing parking signage conditions along Azusa Avenue going northbound near Thelborn Street. The resident reported that there are 2-hour parking signs located along Azusa Avenue, but vehicles such as semi-trucks tend to park for an extended period. The resident asked for replacement of faded and unidentifiable signs to inform drivers of the current parking restrictions along Azusa Avenue. Azusa Avenue has a 40 mile per hour speed limit. The ADT from the last traffic study, or the 2017 engineering traffic survey, was 40,287 vehicles per day, with an 85th percentile speed of 41 miles per hour. Azusa Avenue is a principal arterial road based on the Caltrans road classification map, and the adjacent land use is office and commercial spaces. On-street parking conditions are that they are allowed, but with restrictions including 2-hour parking and parking restrictions due to street sweeping. So based on engineering judgment, the City of West Covina traffic request guidelines found in the CAM UTCD and California Vehicle Code, it has been concluded that Azusa Avenue will benefit from replacing signage that are faded or vandalized beyond recognition. And the recommendations are to replace existing 2-hour parking signs along the east side of Azusa Avenue north and south of Thelborn Avenue, replace the existing pole with a 10-foot pole and add an additional set of signs approximately 150 feet from the existing signage also on a 10-foot pole. The second recommendation is to replace the existing faded no parking signs along east side of Azusa Avenue and to replace the existing poles with 10-foot poles and add an additional set of signs approximately 150 feet from the existing signage also on a 10-foot pole.
Comment is that we can eliminate one, the number 2. I think they can be placed on the same pole. But when field check is that, the existing parking signage was bent, faded, you couldn't even read it, and they were very short. They were maybe 6 foot. As well as when we did the field check, there was a truck parked there. So, that definitely, reduces line of sight when they exit Thelborn. So we would like to, the resident who called in the request also said the trucks, because the signs were non-legible, they were parking all day. So this way, hopefully, if someone needs to make a pit stop at one of the markets or something, they can, and then they can move on. But, we would have the better signage out there. Do we have any other comments?
No, I think it's good.
Okay, and then, we need to fix this, that they can be on the same pole. So we need to say that we need to remove the existing pole and put a new pole on, there's two poles, one north of Thelborn and one south of Thelborn, but we need to add an additional signage because it's only one for the whole block. It's not enough. So we need to place them 150, 200 feet apart, wherever is most beneficial. And then this way we can hopefully get the parking restrictions. And then we can also check with maintenance if they are able to do this, or we need to lump it with our other group. Any other comments?
So the existing poles are less than 10 feet?
Yes, they're like 6 feet, very
The
short.
old ones?
Yeah, and they're kinda, and the signs are all mangled.
Substandard?
Yeah. So especially if we have high-profile vehicles parking there,
They don't
we
see
have
it.
a little taller signs, then we can see, even if it's a van or a SUV, you can see over them to see what the parking restriction is.
Okay.
Okay?
Thumbs up?
All right, thumbs up, and then, Brian will check with maintenance. If they have these in stock, they can maybe do that earlier. If not, we'll lump them and it'll go to the council with the rest. And we did not have a resident on that item. So that concludes it, our items. Is there anyone here that has something not on the agenda they want to discuss, or you're good? Okay. All right, well, thank you all for coming, and Brian, you want to conclude it?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and close out this meeting, and then we'll have our next meeting in October in the 3rd floor Management Resources Room.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.